The Calgary Flames didn't flame on, but flamed out in 2023-24, missing the playoffs and jettisoning a large portion of their talent to jumpstart a rebuild. With the tough times ahead for the Calgary faithful, what does the Sea of Red have to endure in the upcoming 2024-25 season? Before we get started, I wanted to give a few thoughts on the tragedy that occurred last week, with Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew losing their lives in a motor vehicle accident in New Jersey. The brothers were out for a bike ride and were hit by a drunk driver, dying on August 29, 2024. It was a tragedy that rocked the hockey world and the Gaudreau's family. He leaves behind a wife and 2 young children, as well as a sister whose wedding he was set to be in the very next day. Even though he's currently a player for the Columbus Blue Jackets, their video came out before his untimely death, and as he began his career in Calgary, a place he played for 9 seasons, I thought this was a fitting place to put my words with regards to his and his brother's tragic passing. I know it's of little comfort to his family and friends, teammates, and the community that loved him, but I joined the hockey community in mourning his and his brother's passing. Gaudreau was a good young kid, somebody who I actually got the privilege of getting to see play as a young man in a tournament against my younger brother. His talent and character stood out then, and they stood out throughout his NHL career. I hope his family and friends can find some comfort in the many people who have come out, both of the Gaudreau brothers, in their passing. Rest in peace to both Johnny and Matthew.
I admit it. Last year was rough.
The Calgary Flames season was basically dead on arrival ever since the first puck dropped. When you only win 2 out of your first 11 games, that's basically a death knell for your entire season, unless you go on a massive win streak. And spoiler alert, the Flames did not. The turkey had barely gotten cold from American Thanksgiving before the Calgary Flames were already shipping off some of their players for prospects and picks. Nikita Zadorov to Vancouver, then Elias Lindholm to the Canucks, in a trade I still maintain they absolutely fleeced Vancouver in. And then at the deadline, the big ones, Chris Tanev to the Stars and Noah Hanifin to the Golden Knights. A couple of tough losses that actually coincided with the Flames stabilizing throughout the midpoint of the season, but unfortunately they were just too far behind the 8 ball. Even though they did ride a good stretch back over 500 at the start of February, it was just too little too late, and they closed out the season with a stretch where they won only 1 of 9 games, thus all but assuring that they would finish the season below 500. But the dismantling didn't stop in the regular season. In the offseason, they shipped off star goalie Jacob Markstrom to the Devils in exchange for a healthy return that included prospect Kevin Ball, and Andrew Mangiapane to the Capitals in exchange for a second-round pick in 2025. Even though it would be easy to lay a lot of last year's failings at the feet of head coach Ryan Huska or absolve him of said blame because of all the talent that got jettisoned last year. But regardless, Calgary finished about where I thought that they would, just outside of the playoff picture, but still respectable. They finished around 500. And so even though they got off to a really bad start, I have to say, I think that Huska did a pretty damn good job considering all the talent that they lost. And I think with his past experience as a head coach in the AHL, working with a lot of younger players, he is the right guy to head the transition into the next era of Flames hockey around a lot of young players, which is what they've done by trading away most of their star players for young prospects and picks. And hey, this guy put up a better record in his first year than Marty St. Louis has ever done for the Canadiens, and they revere that guy out there, so Huska's probably going to be safe for like a decade.
You're a star, you're on top, somebody bring you some help. You should kill yourself.
While it's tempting to pick Nazem Kadri as the Flames star player since he did lead the team in points last year, I'm actually going to give it to Mackenzie Weegar. I don't want to say elite, but certainly very good defenseman. While he is an unfortunate reminder of that trade for Flames fans, Weegar himself is still a very solid defenseman for the Flames, putting up 20 goals and 52 points for Calgary last year. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, and honestly, it isn't. Flames fans, it's going to be a rough go of it.
Oh, this guy again.
All right, let's go through the carcass of this roster, starting with the other half of the infamous Matthew Tkachuk trade, Jonathan Huberdeau. This guy probably wants to go into witness protection for how bad Calgary fans want him run out of town. But that is what tends to happen when you follow up a 115-point campaign the year before you get traded to 2 straight 50-point seasons in Calgary, while the guy you got traded for leads them to 2 deep playoff runs. Maybe start scoring a little bit more, Hubie. He'll be centered by Mikael Backlund, a guy who's been on the Flames for, I'm guessing, 30 years. He spent his entire career in Calgary, never getting to experience the good life, much like the innies in Severance. That top line will be rounded out by Blake Coleman, whose eyes say first line, but mouth, body, and stats say third line. All 3 of those guys are also over the age of 30, so keep any wishful thinking that the 3 of them might take a jump forward this year to yourselves, Flames Flames fans. On the second line, you got Igor Sharangovich, their one promising young player at age 25, who just put up his first almost 60-point season. He'll be flanked by a zygote in 22-year-old Connor Zary, who got called into 64 games of NHL action and only scored 34 points, and Anthony Mantha. The third line gets started with a Marty party as Martin Popsvisil, some good energy and punch, but not a lot of scoring, but that'll be balanced out easily by veterans Nazem Kadri and Andrei Kuzmenko. Kadri, of course, led the team in points last year and is having a bit of a resurgence after moving out west following his cup run in Colorado, while Kuzmenko took a little bit of a step back last year, but still scored 25 points in 29 games for the Flames. He's a guy I would expect to also get moved by Calgary this year, and probably for a better return than your brethren in BC got for him. Finally, on the fourth line, you've got Ryan Lomberg, who I assume you brought over just to ask if Matthew Tkachuk ever talks about you in the Florida Panthers locker room, along with Kevin Rooney and Walker Duehr. I hardly knew her. That back end, though, an absolute train wreck. Yeah, you got Mackenzie Weir back there, but he's paired with Daniil Miramonov, who in his 3-year NHL career has played in only 49 games. It's literally a defensive pairing of Hydrogen Bomb and Coughing Baby. Behind them, though, a second pairing with some promise, but not a whole lot of productivity. Rasmus Andersson is the elder statesman of the two at 27, who gets a lot of ozone starts for a guy who doesn't score a whole lot, and he's paired with 24-year-old Kevin Ball, acquired from New Jersey in the Markstrom trade. Of course, Ball has a lot of promise and potential, and he was excess goods in New Jersey, so maybe he's not completely terrible. The third pairing features Jake B, newly brought in from Columbus, and at 25 he might also have some upside, but unlike Ball, there's a ton of bad habits you're going to have to beat out of him after spending 3 years with the dumpster fire known as the Blue Jackets. And finally, 25-year-old Braden Pahal will be rounding out the defense, looking to get his first full season of NHL experience under his belt. He's the one with the least games out of the other young players, so he has the most questions to answer going into this season. In net, Jacob Markstrom is gone, sent off to New Jersey as part of the jettisoning of everything in Calgary that might have value. They'll now have to trust young Dustin Wolf and career backup Dan Vladar in net for them this year. Wolf probably figures to have the inside track at the starting job given that he's 23 and hasn't proven that he's completely terrible yet like Dan Vladar has. But given that the two of them hold the distinction of being the worst and second worst in terms of goals saved above expected per 60 last year, let's just say Calgary Flames players are going to get used to their opponent's goal siren real quick this year.
Brit is in this?
New players? Think the Calgary Flames, after trading away everything that has value, are going out and spending money in the offseason to get new players? No, that is not happening. The only big additions in Calgary this offseason came through the draft, where, admittedly, they did a pretty good job. Zane Parekh at pick number 9 in the first round is a great selection in my opinion, a for sure top 10 talent who just needs a few more years to mature. They also managed to snipe Andrew Basha at pick 41 in the second round, which is a really good value because I had him going in the 20s in my pre-draft mock. And then they got Henry Muse at pick 74 after he slipped. Another guy who was a fringe first rounder, getting him in the third round is incredible value. Now between those picks, they did take Matt McGearden at pick 28 in the first round and Jacob Battaglia at pick 62 in the second. Both of those are kind of reaches in my opinion. They're not like obscenely bad picks, and they weren't bad enough to take away from what was otherwise a fantastic set of days for the Calgary Flames organization.
That's not bad.
I already sang Mackenzie Weir's praises, so I'm gonna renew my subscription as the #1 Andrei Kuzmenko fan. I still cannot believe that you got him for next to nothing from Vancouver, and he promptly came into Calgary and resumed his almost point-a-game pace that he had been in his first year in Vancouver, putting up 14 goals and 25 points in 29 games. He's a free agent at the end of this year, so he might not be around for the long term in Calgary, but he's a great trade chip at the deadline. I love his game, even though he makes a few boneheaded mistakes. That explosiveness offensively more than outweighs it in my opinion.
The Gambletron 2000 says the winner is Cincinnati by 200 points. Why, you worthless hunk of junk?
Flames fans, would you like me to lie and tell you that it's all going to be okay this year? Yeah, the Flames are going to be one of the worst teams in the NHL this year, and their only saving grace is that they're also in a division that includes the Ducks and the Sharks, who I think they're actually better than. But honestly, that's just going to kind of screw you because you really need to bottom out and get a top 5 pick like the Sharks did with Celebrini.
Can't kick them right now, but if there's anything to criticize, it's handing Jonathan Huberdeau a 10x8 deal without another scoring forward next to him.
They were sore losers when my Predators beat them last season because we were a better team and they decided to fight the team. I didn't hate until they did that.
I support every single Canadian team because they haven't won a cup in 34 years. That should say it all. I loved the game when Gretzky played, when Lafleur and Robinson played. I really don't like the league now. I am ready to permanently give up on the game, never watch another game again, at the stadium or on TV. What's the point in wasting your time? We only have so much time in life. Wasting it is like a crime.